Jimi Hendrix's childhood trauma, the injustice that shaped a legend. The name Jimi Hendrix conjures images of electrifying guitar solos, psychedelic soundscapes, and a stage presence that defied gravity. He was a supernova, a musical alchemist who bent sound to his will, forever changing the landscape of rock and roll. Yet, beneath the dazzling spectacle and the iconic image of the guitar god, lay a profound wellspring of pain, neglect, and injustice. Jimi Hendrix's extraordinary genius was not born in a vacuum of privilege or stability. It was forged in the crucible of a deeply troubled childhood, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to transform suffering into transcendent art. This is the story of how a child's cry in the desolate streets of Seattle became the roar of a legend, how the scars of his early life became the very strings upon which he played the soundtrack of a generation. James Marshall Hendrix, born Johnny Allen Hendrix on November 27, 1942, entered a world already fractured. His parents, James Allen "Al" Hendrix and Lucille Jeter, were a study in volatile contrasts. Al, a proud but often struggling man, was a veteran of World War II, a landscape gardener whose dreams were often thwarted by circumstance and a stubborn pride. Lucille, vibrant and beautiful, was also deeply troubled, battling alcoholism and a restless spirit that made her an unreliable presence in her children's lives. Their marriage was a tempestuous cycle of passionate reunions and bitter separations, a constant emotional earthquake that left their young son, Jimi, perpetually on unstable ground. From his earliest days, Jimi was a sensitive, introverted child, often described as shy and withdrawn. He was the eldest of 5 children, though only he and his younger brother Leon would survive into adulthood, the others succumbing to the harsh realities of poverty and inadequate care. This early exposure to loss and the fragility of life undoubtedly left an indelible mark. His mother, Lucille, was frequently absent, disappearing for days or weeks at a time, leaving Jimi and his siblings in the care of relatives, friends, or more often, to fend for themselves. When she was present, her struggles with alcohol often overshadowed any maternal warmth, creating an environment of unpredictable emotional swings and neglect. Al, though he loved his son, was ill-equipped to provide the consistent, nurturing environment a young child desperately needs. His own struggles with poverty, racial discrimination, and the emotional scars of war often manifested as frustration and anger. He worked tirelessly, but the family was perpetually on the brink of destitution, moving from one cramped, dilapidated apartment to another, never truly establishing a sense of home. Jimi's childhood was a nomadic existence, a blur of temporary addresses, unfamiliar faces, and the constant anxiety of not knowing where his next meal would come from or who would be there to tuck him in at night. The injustice of Jimi's early life was multifaceted. It wasn't just the poverty, though that was a crushing weight. It was the emotional abandonment, the lack of a stable parental figure, the absence of consistent love and security. A child's fundamental need for attachment and safety was repeatedly undermined. Jimi often found himself in the role of a surrogate parent to his younger siblings, a burden far too heavy for his small shoulders. He learned early on to observe, to internalize, and to retreat into his own vivid imagination as a means of survival. The vibrant inner world he cultivated was a sanctuary from the harsh realities of his external existence. Psychologically, this early trauma laid a complex foundation. Children who experience such profound neglect and instability often develop an insecure attachment style, struggling with trust and intimacy later in life. They may also exhibit heightened sensitivity, a tendency towards introversion, and a powerful drive to create their own sense of order and meaning in a chaotic world. For Jimi, this manifested as a deep yearning for connection, a profound empathy, and an almost obsessive need to express the inexpressible, the sounds he heard, the colors he saw, the emotions he felt. All were amplified by his solitary existence, waiting for an outlet. The injustice of his broken home wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was the silent, unseen force that began to shape the extraordinary artist he would become, pushing him towards a destiny he couldn't yet comprehend. As Jimi transitioned from early childhood into his formative adolescent years, the instability only deepened. His mother, Lucille, passed away in 1958 when Jimi was just quinze, a devastating loss that, while perhaps not entirely unexpected given her health and lifestyle, nonetheless ripped a gaping hole in his already fragile world. Her death, coupled with Al's continued struggles to provide a stable home, pushed Jimi further into himself. He became even more withdrawn, finding solace not in human connection, which had proven so unreliable, but in the nascent stirrings of a profound passion, music. The streets of Seattle, though often bleak, offered glimpses of a vibrant musical culture. rhythm and blues, jazz, and early rock and roll filled the airwaves and spilled from juke joints. Jimi, with his keen observational skills and innate sensitivity, absorbed it all. He couldn't afford a real instrument, so he improvised. A broomstick became his first guitar, its bristles plucked and strummed, its imaginary strings resonating with the melodies he heard in his head. He would spend hours in his room, lost in this private world of sound, mimicking the guitarists he admired on records, internalizing their techniques, and crucially, beginning to develop his own unique voice. His father, Al, eventually bought him a cheap, beat-up acoustic guitar for $5. It was a revelation. This wasn't just a toy, it was a portal. Jimi poured every ounce of his pent-up emotion, his loneliness, his frustration, and his yearning into that instrument. He taught himself to play by ear, listening intently to blues legends like B.B. King, Muddy Waters, and Robert Johnson, dissecting their riffs, and then reassembling them in his own idiosyncratic way. He was left-handed, but his father insisted he play right-handed, a constraint that, rather than hindering him, forced him to adapt, to find unconventional ways of manipulating the fretboard, contributing to his distinctive style. Music became his sanctuary, his escape, and his language. When words failed him, when the world outside felt too harsh and unforgiving, the guitar offered a means of expression that was pure and unadulterated. It was a form of self-medication, a way to process the trauma of his past and the uncertainty of his present. He dropped out of high school, finding the structured environment stifling and irrelevant compared to the boundless possibilities of sound. His education now took place in dimly lit clubs, in the company of older musicians, and in the solitary hours he spent with his guitar. This period of neglect and survival was crucial. It forced Jimi to rely entirely on his inner resources. He didn't have the luxury of formal training or parental guidance. He had to invent himself. The injustice of his circumstances, the lack of a safety net, paradoxically fueled an unparalleled drive for self-mastery. He wasn't just learning to play an instrument, he was learning to communicate his soul through it. The guitar became an extension of his being, a conduit for the raw, untamed emotions that had been simmering within him since childhood. It was in these early, desperate years that the seeds of his revolutionary sound were sown, watered by tears and nurtured by an unyielding desire to transcend his reality. If you're finding this deep dive into Jimi Hendrix's formative years as compelling as we are, imagine the other untold stories waiting to be discovered. Don't miss out on future explorations of the lives behind the legends. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of music history enthusiasts. Jimi's journey from a neglected Seattle youth to a burgeoning musician was fraught with challenges. After a brief, unfulfilling stint in the U.S. Army, where he was discharged due to an ankle injury and perhaps an unsuitability for military discipline, he plunged headfirst into the world of professional music. This meant years on the Chitlin Circuit, the network of venues across the southern and eastern United States that catered to black audiences during the era of segregation. He played as a sideman for a litany of rhythm and blues and soul acts, Little Richard, the Isley Brothers, Curtis Knight and the Squires, and many more. These years were a brutal but invaluable apprenticeship. Jimi honed his craft nightly, playing countless gigs, often in smoky, cramped clubs for meager pay. He learned the intricacies of stage presence, the dynamics of a live band, and the art of captivating an audience. But beneath the surface, a profound frustration simmered. He was a sideman, constrained by the expectations of band leaders, unable to fully unleash the torrent of sound and emotion that raged within him. His unique style, his experimental approach to feedback and distortion, was often deemed too wild, too unconventional for the established R&B acts. He was a square peg in a round hole, his genius stifled by the very environment that was supposed to nurture it. The scars of his childhood were not forgotten, they were transmuted. The loneliness, the feeling of being an outsider, the yearning for connection, all found their way into his playing. His guitar wasn't just an instrument, it was a confessional, a therapist, a weapon, and a lover. When he bent a note, it wasn't just a musical flourish. It was a cry, a lament, a scream of joy, or a whisper of sorrow. The raw, visceral emotion that characterized his solos was a direct echo of his lived experience. He didn't just play the blues. He was the blues, infused with the psychedelic colors of his imagination and the electric energy of his restless spirit. Psychologically, this process is known as sublimation, where socially unacceptable impulses or difficult emotions are transformed into more acceptable and often productive forms of expression. For Jimi, the pain of his past, the injustice of his upbringing, and the frustrations of his early career were not suppressed. They were channeled directly into his music. His guitar became the extension of his nervous system, a direct conduit from his soul to the audience. The feedback, the distortion, the sheer volume. These weren't just technical innovations. They were sonic manifestations of the chaos and intensity he had experienced, now controlled and sculpted into breathtaking art. He spoke of his music as an electric church, a place where people could find spiritual release and connection. This desire to create a communal, almost sacred experience through sound stemmed directly from his own deep-seated need for belonging and transcendence. He wanted to heal, not just himself, but his audience, through the power of his art. The injustice of his early life, which had denied him a stable home and consistent love, paradoxically gifted him with an unparalleled empathy and a profound understanding of the human condition, which he then poured into every note. His guitar wasn't just making sounds, it was telling stories, his stories, and in doing so, it resonated with the unspoken stories of millions. What do you think? Can profound personal struggles truly be the catalyst for groundbreaking artistic expression? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on the connection between pain and creativity. The turning point came in 1966 when Chas Chandler, the bassist for The Animals, saw Jimi perform in New York. Chandler immediately recognized the raw, untamed genius that others had dismissed. He convinced Jimi to come to London, a city then at the epicenter of a cultural revolution. It was there that the Jimi Hendrix experience was formed, with Mitch Mitchell on drums and Noel Redding on bass. The transformation was instantaneous and explosive. London embraced Jimi with an enthusiasm that had been absent in America. Within months, he was a sensation, releasing groundbreaking singles like Hey Joe, Purple Haze, and The Wind Cries Mary, which showcased his revolutionary guitar work and poetic lyrics. His return to America at the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967 was nothing short of a triumph. His incendiary performance, culminating in the ritualistic burning of his guitar, cemented his status as a rock icon. He wasn't just playing music. He was performing a primal scream, a cathartic release that captivated and shocked audiences. 2 years later, at Woodstock, his rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner became an anti-war anthem, a searing, distorted commentary on the Vietnam War, transforming a national symbol into a powerful statement of protest and pain. Despite the stratospheric success, the internal struggles persisted. Fame brought its own set of pressures, and the demons of his past, though sublimated into his art, were never entirely vanquished. The chaotic lifestyle, the constant touring, the demands of the music industry, and the ever-present shadow of his early trauma took their toll. He was a sensitive soul navigating a brutal industry, often misunderstood, and perpetually searching for a deeper meaning. The injustice he experienced as a child, the feeling of being an outsider, continued to haunt him even as he stood on the world's biggest stages. Yet, it was this very struggle, this profound wellspring of emotion, that made his music so universally resonant. His sound was raw, honest, and vulnerable, reflecting the complexities of the human experience. He didn't just play notes, he played feelings. The injustice of his childhood, the neglect, the poverty, the racial discrimination he faced. All contributed to a unique perspective, a depth of feeling that few artists could match. He took the ashes of his past and forged them into a blazing, immortal flame. Jimi Hendrix's untimely death in September 1970, at the age of 27, cut short a career that was still evolving, still pushing boundaries. But his legacy was already secured. He had not only redefined the electric guitar but had also shown the world the transformative power of art born from adversity. His music was a testament to resilience, a defiant roar against the injustices of life, and a celebration of the human spirit's ability to find beauty and meaning amidst chaos. He proved that even from the most broken beginnings, something truly extraordinary can emerge. His scars became his strings, and on those strings, he played a symphony of immortality. If you've been moved by Jimi's incredible journey and the enduring power of his music, please show your appreciation by giving this video a thumbs up. It helps us share these important stories with a wider audience. The story of Jimi Hendrix is a powerful reminder that genius often emerges from unexpected places, forged in the fires of adversity. His childhood trauma, the profound injustices he faced, did not break him. They shaped him. They instilled in him a unique sensitivity, an unparalleled drive for expression, and a deep well of emotion that he channeled into every searing guitar riff, every poetic lyric. He took the pain of his past and transformed it into a universal language of sound, a legacy that continues to inspire, challenge, and move generations. His life is a testament to the idea that even in the face of profound suffering, the human spirit can not only survive, but can also create something truly immortal, turning personal injustice into a beacon of hope and artistic triumph for the entire world. If you want to continue exploring the fascinating intersections of life, trauma, and legendary artistry, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and have hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. We're committed to bringing you more stories that illuminate the human experience behind the icons.